Welcome back, everyone, and buckle up, because this time we're diving headfirst into one of America's most infamous unsolved mysteries.
The Zodiac Killer.
Okay, the Zodiac.
This case has captivated people for decades, and it's not hard to see why.
Right.
I mean, you've got serial killings,
Cryptic ciphers.
a killer who seemed to just love the media attention.
It's like a true crime thriller, but, it really happened.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we're here.
Today, we are sifting through mountains of information.
FBI files, articles, research.
All that good stuff, trying to make sense of this guy.
This chilling enigma.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty.
The crimes themselves.
Yeah, before we get into that.
I think it's important to think about the context a little bit.
Yeah, set the scene.
Yeah, so we're talking about the late 1960s in California.
The Bay Area, right.
Especially the Bay Area.
Like counterculture, central, peace, love, and murder.
Yeah, so this was a time of just like massive social and cultural upheaval, right? And this atmosphere of change, I think, it probably played a role both in the Zodiac's ability to operate and the challenges that law enforcement faced in trying to catch him.
So you're saying the social climate, actually might have helped him blend in?
It's a possibility,
It's
yeah.
a fascinating angle.
Think about it. The Bay Area was like a melting pot of just so many different ideologies and lifestyles, right?
Yeah.
Anonymity was easier to come by.
Right.
Traditional investigative techniques.
It might not have been as effective.
In such a rapidly changing environment, yeah.
And it's not like he stayed in one place.
No, not at all.
He was all over.
All over the Bay Area.
Lovers lanes.
Bustling city streets.
Upscale neighborhoods.
Yeah, it was all over the place. And I think that made it even harder for law enforcement to really get a handle on
his movement.
his movements. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks.
Let's get into the timeline
Yeah, what do we know?
of the actual attacks.
For sure.
What are the confirmed attacks?
Yeah, the confirmed ones. What do we know about the victims? What do we know about how he operated?
Yeah, as modus operandi.
Yeah, fancy word.
Yeah, so the first confirmed attack was December 20th, 1968,
68.
at Lake Herman Road.
Okay,
It's near Benicia.
I've heard of that.
The victims were a young couple, David Faraday. He was 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, she was just 16.
Oh my gosh, just kids.
They were both shot multiple times.
It's so sad.
Yeah, so young.
Senseless.
It seemed random.
That randomness, I think that's got to be one of the most terrifying things about this case.
I think so, too.
You don't know who he's going to target next.
Right. He wasn't targeting a specific type of person.
Some serial killers will target.
A certain demographic,
Yeah.
but this was like anybody.
To be anyone. Yeah.
Could have been anyone, which I'm sure just made everyone in the Bay Area
So terrifying.
on edge, absolutely.
And then he does it again,
Does it again.
July 4th,
1969.
at Blue Rock Springs Park.
In Vallejo, right? In Vallejo.
Okay.
So the victims this time were Darlene Ferrin, she was 22, and Michael McGough, who was 19.
And Darlene was killed, right.
Tragically, yeah.
But Michael survived.
He survived, which is huge. Huge, because he's one of the few people who actually saw the Zodiac
Face to face.
face to face.
Wow, that's got to be
And lived to tell the tale.
incredible. So, is his description of the attacker,
I mean, it's one of the earliest descriptions we have.
is it reliable, do we think?
I mean, you have to keep in mind that this was, a very traumatic experience.
Of course.
In the dark, things like that.
Sure, but still anything.
Anything is helpful
Yeah.
at this stage, absolutely.
And this is where things start to take a really
A turn.
a turn.
He starts to communicate.
Yeah, this is where he really starts to play his games, right?
This is where the games begin.
With the police and the media.
Exactly. So shortly after the Blue Rock Springs attack,
Right after.
the Vallejo Police Department, they get a phone call
A phone call
from a man
claiming to be the killer.
claiming to be the killer.
Wow.
And that was just the beginning.
The beginning of the end, really.
Yeah, a reign of terror, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, he's taunting the public.
Taunting the police through a series of letters
In Ciphers.
sent to local newspapers.
Like he wanted the attention.
He thrived on it.
He reveled in it.
Absolutely reveling in the fear and the chaos he was creating.
It's like he's putting on a show.
Using the media as his stage.
Yeah, it's chilling.
It's a great way to put it, though. He was very aware of how powerful the media is.
How to use it.
And how to manipulate it.
Now, the third attack,
This one's interesting.
this is where things,
They shift a bit.
yeah, it's September 27, 1969.
At Lake Berryessa.
This is when he changes weapons, right?
Exactly. This time he attacks Cecilia Shepard. She was 22. and Brian Hartnell, who was 20.
Okay.
And this time he uses a knife.
Instead of a gun.
Yeah.
Why the switch?
I mean, we don't know for sure.
It's weird, right?
It's very strange.
But he was also wearing like a costume?
He was, yeah. It was this distinctive costume, black hood with his signature symbol on it.
The crosshair.
Yeah, the cross circle symbol.
Okay.
And to make it even creepier,
Oh, no.
he carved the dates of his previous attacks into Brian Hartnell's car door.
So he's escalating.
Absolutely. Escalate.
It's not just about the killings anymore.
There's a theatrical, almost ritualistic element to it now.
Yeah, the costume, the symbol, like he's staging a scene.
Very deliberate.
It's like he wants to be,
Remembered?
yeah, but more than remembered, like, I don't know,
He wants to control the narrative, his image.
like infamous.
Exactly.
And his final confirmed victim.
Paul Stein.
This one's different too, right?
It is, yeah.
It's October 11th, 1969.
Paul Stein was a cab driver in San Francisco.
Okay.
So the Zodiac shoots and kills him.
In his cab.
Yeah, in the affluent Presidio Heights neighborhood.
That's bold.
It's different, right?
Yeah.
Because unlike the other attacks,
Paul Stein's alone.
he was a solo victim. Yeah.
Not a couple.
Not a couple, and that's interesting.
So maybe his targeting changed.
It's a possibility.
Or maybe he was just feeling more confident.
More desperate.
Maybe.
I don't know.
And he took a trophy this time.
He did, a piece of Paul Stein's shirt,
Blood-soaked.
blood-soaked,
Yep.
and he sends it to the San Francisco Chronicle.
Along with a letter
Of course.
solidifying his image as a,
Ruthless predator
a monster.
who could strike anywhere.
And these are just the confirmed attacks, right?
That's right. There are several other potential attacks
Oh, wow.
that have been attributed to the Zodiac.
But we don't know for sure.
We don't know for sure.
Oh, man, that just adds another layer
Of mystery.
to this whole thing.
Absolutely. And fear.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, like, how many more out there?
Right. How many victims might have escaped?
Or cases that just remain unsolved.
To this day, yeah.
So we may never know the true extent of his crimes.
That's a chilling thought.
It really is.
Mhm.
But, okay, let's try to get inside his head a little bit.
Try to understand him.
Yeah. What can we learn from the evidence we do have?
About a psychological profile.
Like, what kind of a mind is capable of these acts?
Right. So based on his communication,
The letters.
Ciphers, his choice of victim.
Nature of the crimes. Yeah, behavioral analysts, they've put together a pretty compelling profile.
They have.
And what does it say?
Well, it's clear that the Zodiac, he craved attention.
And control.
He wanted to be in control, absolutely.
Yeah.
And his letters, they were full of boasts, threats, those intricate ciphers.
Yeah.
All of that suggests a narcissistic personality,
With a need for power.
a strong need for power and dominance.
He wanted to be feared.
He wanted to be seen as superior.
Smarter than everyone else.
Outsmart the authorities at every turn, yeah.
That's pretty classic serial killer stuff, right?
It is that need to feel powerful, to be in control.
But the Zodiac,
He was different. He was
Well,
methodical.
intelligent.
And he almost used those coded messages
Yeah.
and the media manipulation as a game.
It was like he was playing with them.
Oh, he absolutely was playing with them.
It's chilling.
He wasn't just a brutal killer,
He was a puppet master
a master manipulator.
who seemed to just enjoy the cat and mouse game he was playing.
It's like he was getting off on it,
Yeah.
which is, disturbing.
And that brings us to the ciphers,
Oh, yeah.
those cryptic puzzles.
That have stumped people for decades.
Yeah, I mean, the first one, the 408 symbol message sent to the newspapers in '69,
Right.
it was cracked in days.
Like a school teacher couple, no less.
Like, what does that tell us?
about his methods.
Yeah, I mean, was he dumb?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, me either.
I mean, it's interesting that first cipher, it was complex,
Right.
but it wasn't as impenetrable as he maybe intended.
So it was a miscalculation on his part.
It's possible, yeah.
Or was he intentionally making it easier?
To kind of get the ball rolling.
Yeah, like
Reel people in.
Yeah, like, oh, you think you're so smart, you cracked this one. Well, wait till you see what I got next.
Yeah, exactly.
Like to taunt them a little bit.
It's certainly possible. Remember, this was a time when cryptography wasn't as advanced as it is today.
Right, right.
He might have just overestimated the difficulty of that first cipher.
Or he wanted to draw people into his game.
Make them feel like they were close to catching him.
And
then there's the 340 symbol cipher.
now that one
Is a beast.
That one took over 50 years to crack.
Cracked in 2020.
2020. By an international team of code breakers. Like, what was the difference?
I mean, it was just so much more complex.
Like way more complex.
Way more complex, yeah. He used a different encryption method, possibly inspired by military codes.
Whoa.
Advanced cryptography textbooks.
Okay, so he was upping his game.
It seems that way.
Trying to stay one step ahead.
I think so.
So we've got this killer who's intelligent, methodical, clearly loves the attention. But has anyone ever been definitively linked to these crimes?
That is the question.
That's the million-dollar question.
That's the question that has haunted investigators for over 5 decades now.
Yeah.
Despite decades of investigation, countless leads, numerous suspects,
No one's been caught.
no one has been definitively identified as the Zodiac Killer.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
After all this time.
After all this time.
I know, it's mind-boggling.
It's crazy. So who are the main suspects then? Like, who've they looked at over the years?
Well, one of the most heavily scrutinized suspects was Arthur Lee Allen.
I've heard that name.
He was a Vallejo school teacher.
Okay.
And his case is particularly interesting because there was a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Pointing to him?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things kind of lined up. For example, he matched some of the physical descriptions given by witnesses.
Okay.
He owned a Zodiac brand watch.
Yeah, and he even knew one of the victims.
No way.
Yeah, and then on top of all that, investigators found some pretty disturbing writings and drawings in his belongings.
Like what kind of writings?
Stuff that seemed to echo the Zodiac's style.
Like similar themes?
Yeah, similar themes, similar language, dark, violent imagery.
Okay, but wait, didn't they clear him with DNA?
They did, yeah. Back in 2002, DNA testing excluded Allen as the source of DNA that they found on some of the Zodiac's letters.
So case closed.
Well, not so fast.
What do you mean?
The fact that he remained a prime suspect for so many years, even after the DNA evidence cleared him,
Right.
it suggests that there was something there.
Like maybe he was involved somehow, but like wasn't the actual killer?
That's a theory, right?
Maybe he had an accomplice.
Or was directing someone else, yeah.
Oh, that's creepy.
Very creepy.
Like it's like a shadow figure behind the shadow figure.
A puppet master?
Yeah, like a Zodiac mastermind.
And, we can't rule anything out with this case.
No, definitely not. So who else is on the list?
Well, another suspect who's generated a lot of buzz recently is Gary Francis Post.
Okay, this is the guy who
Would died.
Yeah, and then this group, the case breakers.
Yeah, the case breakers.
They came out and said it was him.
Exactly. In 2021, they made headlines claiming that Post was the Zodiac.
And what's their evidence?
Well, their main points were photographic evidence and anagram analysis.
Okay, break that down for me.
So they claim to have found pictures among Post's belongings.
Pictures of what?
Pictures that they say link him to the crime scenes.
Okay.
And they also say they've deciphered hidden messages in the Zodiac's letters.
Hidden messages.
Yeah, like secret messages spelled out using anagrams.
Like rearranging the letters.
Exactly.
And these anagrams, they spell out Post's name.
That's what they claim.
But isn't that kind of like subjective?
It is, yeah. And that's why a lot of people are skeptical.
Oh, to the police, right?
Including law enforcement. Yeah.
So what's the official word?
Officially, they haven't linked Post to the crimes.
So another dead end.
Pretty much.
Man, it's like every time we think we're getting close.
Another twist.
Another layer of complexity.
It's frustrating, I know.
It really is. Okay, what about Ross Sullivan? I read something about him being a suspect too, right?
Right. Ross Sullivan, he was a student at UC Berkeley.
Okay.
And his case is interesting because he was actually near several of the crime scenes.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. And he was reportedly interested in codes and ciphers.
So like the Zodiac.
Similar interests, yeah.
And did he look like the composite sketches?
He did resemble some of the witness descriptions.
So what happened? Why wasn't he like a bigger suspect?
Well, there was a lack of any concrete evidence.
Oh, okay.
And he was later institutionalized for mental health issues.
Oh, I see.
So it's hard to say for sure if he was involved or not.
So another guy with like possible connections to the case, but not enough to actually tie him to it definitively.
It's a pattern with this case, unfortunately.
Oh, so frustrating. But it also makes you realize just how careful the Zodiac must have been.
Oh, absolutely. He was intelligent, aware of forensic techniques, and almost certainly took steps to avoid leaving traceable evidence.
He was smart.
He was, and that's part of what makes him so difficult to catch.
Speaking of evidence, what about all the advancements in technology since the late 60s?
Forensic science.
Yeah, like, hasn't there been anything that could help break this case open?
I mean, that's what everyone's hoping for, right?
Yeah.
Forensic science has come a long way since the Zodiac was active.
Like, what kind of stuff?
Well, for starters, we now have tools that weren't even imaginable back then. For example, DNA analysis.
Right. Good.
They've actually got partial DNA profiles from the stamps and envelopes of the Zodiac's letters.
Whoa. Seriously? So can they use that to, like, create a more complete profile of the killer?
That's the hope, yeah?
Or maybe even find a match in a database?
It's possible.
Oh, my God.
Early attempts to use traditional DNA testing methods, they were inconclusive.
Right.
But there are newer techniques.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like single nucleotide polymorphism analysis or SMP analysis.
And what is that?
So imagine you're trying to identify the author of a handwritten letter, right?
Okay.
Traditional DNA testing would be like looking at the overall handwriting style, like the way they form the letters.
Okay, I got you.
SNP analysis, on the other hand, it's like looking for specific typos or misspellings, unique quirks in the way the letters are written.
Like little details that give them away.
Exactly. Those tiny details, they can be even more revealing than the overall style.
Wow, that's amazing.
So by looking for these genetic typos,
Right.
we can potentially get a much more specific genetic fingerprint of the Zodiac.
So we might not have a direct match to him, but we could identify his relatives
It's possible, yeah.
and then, like, work backward to figure out who he is.
Exactly. And with the rise of genealogical databases like GED Match,
I've heard of that.
investigators can upload DNA profiles and search for potential familial matches,
Even distant relatives.
even distant relatives.
That's incredible.
It's a game changer, and it's actually been used to solve a number of cold cases in recent years.
That's amazing.
But there are ethical and legal considerations with using these databases.
Of course, you can't just go around violating people's privacy.
Exactly. We have to balance the potential for solving crimes with the right to privacy.
Makes sense.
It's a powerful tool, but it needs to be used responsibly.
Absolutely. Okay, what about fingerprints? Didn't they find some at the crime scenes?
They did, yeah. Several partial prints were recovered from the crime scenes and from the letters. So far, no matches
In the databases.
in any of the traditional fingerprint databases.
So maybe he never got arrested before.
Or served in the military.
Right, so his fingerprints wouldn't be on file.
Exactly.
Man, he was thorough.
He was very meticulous, but wouldn't fingerprints degrade over time? I mean, we're talking about 50 plus years ago.
That's a good point. Degradation is a challenge.
Right.
But there have been advancements in fingerprint analysis as well.
Like what?
3D topology scanning, for example. It allows for a much more detailed examination.
Of even like smudged or partial prints.
Exactly, so they can reconstruct missing ridges and create a more accurate comparison to potential suspects.
So there's still hope that those fingerprints could lead somewhere.
It's possible.
And his handwriting.
Oh yeah, the Zodiac's handwriting.
It's almost as famous as his crimes,
It is very distinctive.
That arrogant style.
Yeah, almost like he's daring you to read it.
Forensic document examiners, they must have analyzed it like crazy.
They've identified several key characteristics.
Like what?
Exaggerated M strokes, for example.
Okay.
And an unusual way of placing his punctuation marks.
So could that be used to link him to other writings?
Potentially, yeah. Or documents that might surface. Or, like, what if they could compare his handwriting to other samples?
They can, actually.
Really?
Yeah, machine learning and pattern recognition algorithms are now being used in forensic document examination.
You mean like computers?
Exactly.
That's so cool.
These systems can analyze huge amounts of handwriting data
Okay.
and identify similarities or differences.
That humans might miss.
Absolutely.
And could they create a handwriting profile?
They can, based on the known samples, and then search for potential matches.
Wow. It's crazy to think that something as analog as handwriting can be digitized and analyzed like that.
Technology is amazing.
It really is. It gives me hope that we might still, after all these years, we might still be able to unmask the Zodiac.
I think there's always hope.
But let's change gears a bit. I want to talk about the cultural impact of this case. I mean, the Zodiac Killer has become like a mythical figure.
Oh, absolutely. He's a boogeyman.
Like an American legend.
A symbol of evil and mystery.
And his story has been told and retold so many times.
Books, movies, documentaries, podcasts.
Why do you think people are so fascinated by it?
Well, I think it's partly the fact that it's unsolved.
Right. We love a good mystery.
We do. We're drawn to puzzles, and the
It's-
Zodiac case is like the ultimate unsolved puzzle.
We want to know who he was
Why he did it.
and if he's still out there.
Exactly. We want closure. We want answers.
And the way he conducted himself,
The theatricality of it all.
Yeah, the ciphers, the costume, the taunting letters.
It all adds to the mystique.
Makes him seem larger than life.
Absolutely.
And he knew how to work the media.
Oh, yeah.
Engine.
Keep people talking.
Stay in the public eye.
He understood the power of the media and how to exploit it to his advantage.
It's like he created his own brand.
His own twisted legacy.
Yeah, and he did it brilliantly.
Even if it was for all the wrong reasons.
Right. And it's important to remember that behind all this sensationalism,
They were real victims.
real families who were affected by this.
Absolutely. We can't let the fascination with the mystery overshadow the human cost of these tragedies.
That's a really good point. Okay, so speaking of media, what are some of the best portrayals of this case?
Well, in my opinion, David Fincher's film Zodiac is one of the most accurate and compelling.
Oh, I love that movie.
It's great. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, yeah, and it's so meticulous,
Fincher is a master of detail.
Yeah, and it really captures the atmosphere of fear and uncertainty that gripped the Bay Area
During the Zodiac's reign of terror
and the toll it took on the
and
investigators.
the journalists who were obsessed with catching him,
Yeah, they were really consumed by it.
it shows the frustration of the case, how every lead seemed to just evaporate.
A dead end.
The Zodiac always one step ahead.
Yeah, and then their podcasts like Monster, the Zodiac Killer.
Great podcast.
Yeah, I like how they really dig deep into the evidence.
They explore different theories.
They interview people who were actually involved in the case.
It's very in-depth.
Podcasts are a really great medium for true crime.
I agree. They allow for a level of detail that you just don't get in, say, a 2-hour movie.
But do you think all this media attention can actually help solve the case?
That's a good question.
Or does it just make things more confusing?
It's a double-edged sword.
How so?
On the one hand, more media attention can definitely generate new leads,
Okay.
encourage people to come forward with information.
Right.
We've seen this with other cold cases.
So it's like crowdsourcing the investigation.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
tapping into the collective knowledge and curiosity of the public.
That's cool.
But on the other hand, too much media attention can also be a bad thing.
In what way?
It can lead to misinformation, false leads.
People chasing rabbits down holes.
Exactly. And it can even lead to harassment of potential suspects.
Right. Trial by media.
We have to be careful.
Yeah, the media can be a tool for justice, but it can also create chaos.
And make it harder to separate fact from fiction.
Right, right. So we've explored the timeline of his crimes, his psychology, the forensic evidence, both the old and the new, but the question remains.
Who was he?
Yeah, after all this time, after all these theories,
The suspects.
is there any one piece of evidence that you think could actually solve this case?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I know, it's a big question.
This case is full of twists and turns, tantalizing clues, frustrating dead ends.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose one thing,
Okay.
the one piece of evidence that could crack this thing wide open,
Yeah.
it would be DNA.
DNA, really.
Yeah, I mean, in a case like this where we've got so many pieces of the puzzle, but no clear picture,
Yeah.
I think a definitive DNA match would be like the holy grail.
You mean like a direct match to a suspect in a database?
Yeah, or even a familial match.
Oh, right. That could lead investigators to a close relative.
Exactly.
And then they work their way
With
to...
the Zodiac himself. We've talked about the fingerprints, the handwriting, but
DNA
DNA
is the gold standard.
is the most reliable.
It's the most scientifically sound, and in a case like this,
So much speculation.
so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
DNA is like undeniable truth.
It would finally give us a name.
A face to this shadow figure.
Who's haunted California for so long?
It would bring some closure to the victims' families.
Answers so many questions that have lingered for decades.
Exactly.
But what are the chances, really? I mean, the evidence is old, it's degraded.
Right.
There's always the risk of contamination.
You're right to be skeptical. Those are real challenges.
Yeah.
But we've also come a long way with DNA technology.
In what way?
Well, they're developing new extraction techniques all the time,
Oh, wow.
allowing scientists to get usable DNA profiles from even the tiniest samples,
Okay.
even degraded ones,
That's amazing.
and the genealogical databases.
Like GED match.
Yeah, they're growing every day.
So the possibility of finding a match
A familial match, even a distant one.
It's increasing.
All the time.
So there's still hope. There's always hope.
Even after all these years.
I believe so.
It's like the answer is out there. It's just waiting for the right technology.
Hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, just waiting for us to catch up.
Exactly.
That's kind of cool, in a way.
It is. It's the beauty of science, you know?
Always evolving.
Pushing boundaries.
What seems impossible today.
Could be routine tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what keeps me hopeful, I think, about this case.
Me too.
Okay, so let's talk about something else that I find really fascinating, the ciphers.
Oh, yeah.
We know that 2 have been solved.
But a couple remain uncracked.
What's the latest on those?
Those unsolved ciphers, they're like siren songs to code breakers.
Really?
Around the world, yeah. They've become legendary challenges.
So there are people still working on them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Amateur sleuths, professional cryptologists.
Everyone wants to be the one.
To crack the code.
It's like a global brain trust.
It really is.
All focused on these ciphers.
All hoping to unlock the secrets.
And what kinds of techniques are they using?
Well, some people are using brute force computational methods.
Brute force, meaning?
Meaning they're trying every possible combination of letters and symbols.
He's like throwing everything at it.
Yeah, but that can take a long time and a lot of computing power.
So it's not just about technology then?
No, you need ingenuity.
Okay.
A deep understanding of cryptography.
And maybe a little bit of luck.
Maybe a lot of bit of luck.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating.
Oh, for sure.
What else are they doing?
Well, some researchers are using more sophisticated techniques.
Okay.
Like artificial intelligence and machine learning.
AI to crack a code made by a serial killer. That's kind of wild.
It is pretty wild.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does, doesn't it? But it's a testament to how far we've come.
With AI.
Yeah, and with cryptography.
So these AI systems, they can analyze tons of data.
Huge amounts of data, yeah, including solved ciphers.
To try and find patterns.
To identify patterns, potential weaknesses.
In the Zodiac's codes.
Exactly. It's like teaching a computer to think like a code breaker.
That's amazing.
And who knows, maybe that's the key.
To unlocking these ciphers.
Well, what if they hold a clue to his identity?
Or a confession.
Or some insight into his motives.
That would be incredible.
A monumental discovery.
It would rewrite history.
Bring some peace to those who've been haunted by this case for so long.
So even though we may never know for sure who he was,
or what happened to him,
we shouldn't give up hope.
Never give up hope.
Technology is advancing. New evidence might emerge.
You never know what the future holds.
Maybe one day we'll finally close this chapter.
And bring justice to his victims.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap things up.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot today.
A lot of
The
ground.
details of his crimes, the forensic science, the mystery of the unsolved ciphers.
It's a case that just stays with you.
It really does. It reminds us that some puzzles.
They never be fully solved.
But that doesn't mean we should stop searching for answers.
Never stop searching.
The unknown, the unanswered questions, they keep us coming back for more.
It's a human condition, right?
Yeah, we're drawn to the mystery
It's a case that forces us to confront the darkness.
that exists in the world
But it also reminds us of the resilience of the human spirit.
and our need to find justice.
Our need to understand.
Well said. And maybe, just maybe, with the dedication of the investigators
Advancements in technology.
and the public's continued interest,
The true identity of the Zodiac Killer.
will one day be revealed.
Fingers crossed.
Until then, the mystery endures. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.